exposed Benedict Arnold's plot and saved the revolution.
Yes, definitely.
So whatever happened to 355?
355 was captured by the British. She was probably in prison, so she was probably questioned by the British. Because the Culper Ring continued to operate, there's no reason to think that she ever betrayed her fellow ring members.
And she died. You think she died in prison?
I think she died in prison. There's no reason to believe she was released. She's really quite heroic.
And a sad ending too.
Yeah.
It's a true American hero.
Yeah. And she's completely forgotten.
It sounds like there is some pretty good evidence that Agent 355 actually did exist. It seems logical that somebody who was a girlfriend maybe, or had some inside information, would have had to have been responsible for this.
It doesn't surprise me at all that Agent 355 could have been a woman. I was really impressed that the Culper Ring was that sophisticated to use whatever means necessary to get the information that George Washington needed.
I think in the context of the American Revolution, anything that needed to be done should be done. I mean, if she was sleeping with the enemy, and that's what it took, if that won our revolution, I'm grateful.
This has been great. I mean, we're standing here on the banks of the Hudson River, right across from West Point, where Benedict Arnold nearly sold out America. And it's the kind of history that I love most, because you say to yourself, I had no idea.
And how did we have no idea? How did we not learn about this in school? The Culper Spy Ring was absolutely crucial to beating the British.
And that's exactly the point. It's not just did they exist. We know they exist now.
Right.
But it really seems to come down to this group and what they were able to accomplish that did it.
They weren't these highly trained operatives we think of when we think of spies. These were ordinary American people who happened to believe so much in the cause that they're willing to put their lives on the line and be part of this big, big ring.
And think of just how committed they were to that, because they had already seen their predecessor, Nathan Hale, hang.
Yep.
They knew that, and they did it anyway.
That's right.
It's unbelievable.
And the cool thing about this story is that the Culper Spy Ring, about whom we knew virtually nothing, are responsible for bringing down Benedict Arnold and changing the course of American history.
And Agent 355, who we still don't know much about, might have been the one feeding the Culper Spy Ring the information they needed to do that.
Who else would have had access to that type of information but a girlfriend of a major?
And not been suspected for that long, because women just weren't seen as political beings. They wouldn't have thought that they had anything invested in the revolution, which is crazy.
The pieces of the puzzle fit. I think she existed. I just not sure who she was. And who would have guessed the spy master was George Washington? I mean, of all people, we never thought that kind of thing about it.
It's the ultimate brains over brawn. I mean, the British were stronger, they were bigger, and America was outgunned, but they outfought them, and I love that part of it.
For the first time in our history, we had an organized spy ring. And really, this is, in my mind, what led to the CIA, the FBI, and everything we have today.
Yeah, it's the birth.
Makes me kind of wonder whether there are embedded regular folks still today who are doing that work.
I'd almost say for sure, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The skies have opened. We better get out of here and tell
Before
Brad.
we get drenched, let's go talk to him.
The trail of the Culper Ring dies out following the revolution, and it seems that they ceased to operate around 1785, at least as far as we know. But let me tell you the greatest secret of all. I think it's still around. A few years ago, I got a call from the Department of Homeland Security asking me to come brainstorm different ways that terrorists can attack the United States. They read my novels, they saw my research, and I was honored to be part of what they called the Red Cell team. I kept the secret until they asked me to go public. But the point is, I was a regular civilian brought in to help our country, just like the Culper Ring. Even better, last week, when I was telling a former top national security agent about the Culper Ring, the phone went silent and he said to me, you know, there are rumors they're still here. But the best legacy of the Culper Ring is that it supports my core belief. You see, I believe ordinary people change the world. I don't care where you went to school. I don't care how much money you make. I believe that regular people, like the Culper Ring, is how the world gets changed. Don't ever forget, history is a selection process. Most of us think that it chooses a moment and a person and it puts them together. But history chooses each of us every single day. And the only question is, will you hear the call?
Hey, you know you're not actually allowed to drink in a beer commercial?
Since when?
You gotta wait till it's done. Oh,
5,
4, 3, 2, 1.
What if I told you that the mob, organized crime, has taken on a brand new look that most people wouldn't recognize, and they're hiding in places you'd never believe? In 1932, Elliot Ness declared the mob dead when Al Capone was convicted. But we all know organized crime didn't die, it evolved. We're talking about some of the greatest secret keepers of all time. So what did the mob evolve into? Something more sophisticated, more deadly, and more merciless than you can imagine. How do you find them today, and what are they targeting? It is time to decode the mob. I'm Brad Meltzer. I've spent my life collecting stories, signs, symbols, and codes hidden in plain sight. Some have become the basis for my novels, but I've only scratched the surface, and now history has given me the resources to investigate the rest. This is Decoded.
Find an address. 2433 North Lincoln Avenue, Chicago, Illinois.
How long has it been since you guys have been in Chicago?
Too long.
I visited once many years ago.
Hi, Brad.
Hey guys, I'm guessing you're close to Chicago, the city where many believe the American mob was born. Of course, that was about 100 years ago, back when mobsters wore fedoras and slung Tommy guns, which is very different than what the mob looks like these days.
I thought they got all the bad guys.
According to sources like the FBI and the DEA, the mob is up to a very different game these days. And from what they're telling me, one that puts us all at risk. So if it's changed, we need to get a lock on what exactly the mob looks like here in the 21st century to find out what they're up to, how it's changed from the past, and what they target today.
Hey, Brad, should we be worried that we could get whacked?
I won't be laughing so hard if I were you. Don't forget, you're the ones going after the mob.
I have to tell you, the mob is on my list of people not to bother.
Chicago was the sort of the raison d'etre, if you will, of organized crime during Prohibition. That's why all those movies made in the early 1930s are not so much set in New York someplace, they're set in Chicago. You had a virtual citywide gang war here at one time, which you didn't have in most other cities. You had very, very spectacular violence.
We've all seen news stories of mob violence, but for some of the most spectacular violence, it took place right here at Chicago's Biograph Theater, where gangster John Dillinger was gunned down. Dillinger robbed 24 banks, escaped jail twice, and he raided 4 police stations. Most crooks flee the cops, but when Dillinger's men needed supplies, he brought them straight to the police arsenals to steal ammunition, machine guns, and bulletproof vests. On July 22, 1934, J. Edgar Hoover's team of federal investigators tracked Dillinger to the Biograph. And you know what he watched? What else? A gangster movie. Agents were waiting while he exited, and although they reportedly called for his surrender, Dillinger wanted to shoot it out. He was shot 3 times, and at 10:50 p.m., John Dillinger was pronounced dead.
John, law enforcement calls the mob organized crime. How does the organization work, and what's the hierarchy look like?
The basic setup is there's a boss, there's an underboss who reports directly to the boss, carries out the boss's orders. Then there are street crews, if you will, each run by the term in the East Coast would be a capo. And then there's guys inside the crews, East Coast terminology, a soldier. The group that's dominated organized crime in Chicago and the surrounding area for years, the Chicago Outfit, its roots go all the way back to basically 1900, before Prohibition. Al Capone gets and becomes the Capone gang during Prohibition.
In 1920, the 18th Amendment made the manufacture, sale, or transportation of intoxicating liquors illegal. This brought on a dramatic decrease in alcohol consumption and a dramatic increase in organized crime. And there was no bigger name in organized crime than Alphonse Gabriel Capone. Al Capone was born in Brooklyn and moved to Chicago in his 20s, where he quickly rose to the top spot of the city's most notorious gang, the Outfit, and the top spot on the FBI's most wanted list.
I was under the impression that organized crime in Chicago died with Al Capone.
From the truth, although people like Elliot Ness, etc., declared him dead in 1932, but they were just a little bit off base on that. They're still around today, but they're harder to see, they're harder to pin down.
What do they have left to mess with if there's no prohibition?
Gambling, some labor racketeering, some prostitution, and business racketeering, juice lending, things like that. Organized crime is here and will always be here. As long as there's a public demand for something that's illegal, someone will supply it.
Al Capone is to organized crime what Thomas Jefferson is to American politics, a founding father. So if we want to understand exactly what the mob is today, we first need to understand where it came from.
Get 10% off your purchase of Barricade parts of $150 or more this week at ExtremeTerrain.com. Tough, aggressive styling, dependable. Transform your Jeep, Bronco,